good? We on? We rolling? Are we
We're
live?
good.
Are we on? I feel like we've taken a break and a vacation.
Not a vacation.
1 week. That was kind of a vacation. What?
We went hard. That was not. Well,
We went
I guess
hard,
it's vacation.
But we hard on vacation. We hard on naps. We hard with whatever we're doing. But, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sean and Sack Show. We're back.
Catherine said the other day we're extra as fuck, and she's
we
going
are
to get
extra
us
as
mugs that say that for our
mugs
show.
like coffee show or
Mr. and Mrs.
What the fuck am I trying to say?
Extra as fuck.
Our podcast show mugs. This might not be a good day. I'm just not even on. I don't know that I'm on yet. I need an energy drink. Guys, welcome to the show. We didn't do last week because we were out of town. And we were going to do one while we were out of town, but we didn't. Because we just didn't.
No time.
We had no time, and candidly, I didn't want to. I just wanted to race cars. And that's what we were doing. Last week, we were racing. We went to New York, and we raced in Watkins Glen. I raced in a really fast, nice, cool Aston Martin. It was fun. It was good
kind
times.
of ugly in the beginning, but
The wrap wasn't that great. It wasn't. It wasn't good. It was kind of old school, and yeah, it just wasn't the best.
It was an improvement from what it was.
Yeah, we threw some stickers on there, but yeah. So we were gone last week. We were racing, and that kind of ties into what we want to talk about today on the show. Sax and I were talking this morning. She had a good idea for the conversation today, because this is something that's come up not only with us, but with other couples and people, and this interesting thing and this interesting experience in marriage of like being allowed to do things and having approval to do things, and let me ask my husband to go do things, let me ask my wife if I can go buy things. And we were sitting down this morning. I was playing with the dog, and Sax came walking into the room, and I said to Sax,
"Babe, I just bought a race car."
Yeah. I bought a race car. So the car that I was racing last week was actually a buddy of mine. I was supposed to race my good buddy Jason. He races Lamborghinis, GT3 Cup cars, which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. They're really, 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 really sophisticated, high-end, $500,000 or more, race cars that are extraordinarily fast. They're unbelievable. They're as high-level racing as you can get. I was supposed to race that, so I committed to do this race about a month and a half ago. He's like, "Hey, dude, you want to come race?" And for those of you that know, I've been racing for about a year. I've been racing an Acura Integra. So I've been racing this. It sounds funny, but the car's badass. It's cool as fuck. My buddy's been racing these Lambos, right? And we went out to Georgia a year ago. This was after we went to Baja, and he's been street racing for years. And I love racing. I love cars. I love going fast. And so I was like, "Dude, how do I get licensed? How do I start doing this?" And he's like, "Well, it takes like a year." And I'm like, "Bullshit. Let's fast track this, right? Who do I have to pay? What do I have to do?" So we ended up going to Georgia, me and him and two other guys. And to make a long story short, we raced this 6-hour enduro race. My very first time racing. All of these other guys, including my buddy Jason, had raced for years and were very good. And we raced this little Mazda Miata, and it was cool as shit. So anyways, we came back. I was like, "How do I do this?" He's like, get an Acura. And so I bought this Acura Integra, and I've raced that for like a year. So he races both. Jason races the Integra and the Lamborghini, and he's now has like 3 Lamborghinis. And
his Integra works.
Yeah, my Integra hasn't worked. I got a great car, and it just has never... I think I've made it to the finish line like one time. It blows up. I've gone through 3 motors. It's kind of like everything that I deal with in Baja, too. Like, I've started all the races, and I've only finished a couple of them. But that's a different story for a different day. Moral of the story...
You're resilient. ...is
that I really enjoy racing, and I'm brand new to it. I've only been racing for about a year, not even really a year. And I love it. I love it. I love it because it's scary as hell. I love it because it's intimidating. I love it because I'm not good at it. It's something that I'm like starting from the beginning, and I'm a newbie at, right? And so a number of weeks ago, he hit me up and said, "Hey, do you want to come do this race?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." Me being, I'm like, "Sure, let's do it." I didn't really think it through, and spent how many hours watching YouTube videos? All of the hours. I don't think there's a single video on YouTube of the Watkins Glen racetrack that I haven't watched at least a dozen times.
Yeah.
For a reason. I was like, this is intimidating. These are the level of racing that I've been doing for the last year. It's the equivalent of like you riding a unicycle and then jumping into a spaceship. Like that's the equivalent of the difference, right? I've been riding the unicycle. On this race that I'm going to go to, I'm going to be racing a spaceship. And so I put in all this time. I studied anyways. I was supposed to race my buddy Jason's other Lamborghini. He crashed it like 2 weeks before the race. Couldn't fix it. So we were trying to find another car for me to drive because I'd committed to this race. We found an Audi R8, and that one had problems with it. So we settled on this Aston Martin, which I had driven a total of about 5 laps.
Settled on the Aston Martin. That sounds funny.
Settled. Well, I mean, I was signed up for this race trying to go race, and I didn't have a car to race. Initially I did, which obviously everything happens for a reason. I'm really glad that he crashed his Lambo. I'm not glad that he crashed his Lambo, but that car is way fucking above my pay grade. I have no business driving a GT3 Cup car right now. So my other buddy, Jeff Burton, he's got he races with Jason as well, this high level racing, and he has a GT4 car, which is this Aston Martin. So it's essentially it's a class down from the GT3. They're still incredibly amazing. The GT4 cars are wildly fast, 160 miles an hour, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And prior to this, he had said, hey, do you want to test this thing out or go drive it at one of the track days here? Because he was trying to sell it, and he knew that I am crazy and would probably end up buying it. So I had only driven it about 5 laps total before we got to Watkins Glen. So the first practice session that we had, I mean, it's typical stuff. Like I'm lining up on the starting grid with all of these insane racers, all of these incredible race car drivers, these cars, and I'm like, what in the literal fuck am I doing here? Like, you know what I mean? Like looking at it like, why am I here? Anyways, it ended up good. Had an amazing weekend, and drove the car, didn't crash it, came really close twice.
Just mowed the lawn a little.
I mowed the lawn a little bit. In fact, it was really funny. This was televised. The race was televised. You can find it on YouTube if you go look for it. Just type in GT America. In fact, we'll just put the link into it here in the podcast. But I went off the track in the back, and my son Will thought that I hit the wall. We both were running.
Yeah.
I was doing about 120 miles an hour. Came around a corner, couldn't catch the front end. I went straight off the racetrack, and these cars are obviously like really low, like the front, diffuser is like almost to the ground. And so I literally cut the grass. And what's funny is I was sliding and I saved it. And anyways, it was one of the most terrifying things ever. It was like little slow motion, like watching this fence coming at me at 100 miles an hour and not hitting it was incredible. But the whole front end of the car was now filled with grass. And so the one part where they're talking about me in this televised race, the guy's like, oh, it looks like, here's Waylon. He's kind of the new guy, whatever. They were speaking really highly of me, which was cool. He's like, it looks like he must have had like an off-road adventure somewhere on the race course because the whole front of his car, the whole grill was literally covered in grass. And of course,
and it stayed on till the end of the
race.
race.
Oh yeah, well you're doing 100 miles an hour. That shit ain't going anywhere. It's either going through it or it's staying right on there, right? And of course, I pull off the racetrack at the end of the race, and everybody's like, "Yo, what happened?" I'm like, "Fuck, dude, we got to find the video of that." So there's a moral to this. It was a really great weekend. It was a fun weekend. Had a really good time. Family was there. Mom, brother, all the kids. It was really, really, really cool. A lot of really incredible race teams, incredible racers. For us, it's a family experience, right? Like this is one of the things that I love about it is I get to race, but I get to bring my family there, have the kids, experience all this, be in the garage, helping out with different things. But as Sax and I were talking about this, one of the things that kept coming up, and I'll let you talk about this in more detail, but like supporting each other in our endeavors, but more importantly, like not standing in the way or trying to handicap, if you will, somebody living their dreams. Like I didn't ask Saxony to buy my Lamborghini. I didn't ask Sax if I could buy an Aston Martin race car,
right.
And it's not a conversation of, well, I don't have you knew I was buying the Lamborghini. It was showed you the Lamborghini. We talked about the Lamborghini. You knew that I wanted to buy the race car.
I was well prepared.
You know
for the
what I
Lamborghini
mean?
to show up
But
in the driveway.
it's a different experience for me, and we've talked about this because you hear a lot from people, and I hear a lot from guys, especially saying, well, I got to check with my wife, or I got the family, and my wife is not okay with this, or she doesn't approve this, or doesn't support me in this, and all these other things. And it's an interesting experience having been in a relationship of both things. Like I was in my marriage, nothing against my ex-wife, but she hated fighting. She didn't like the UFC, and I loved the UFC. And it was like, I didn't really care for The Bachelor, but I would sit and watch The Bachelor with you because you were my wife, and I typically got late afterwards, and that's kind of how it went, right? But she would never watch the UFC, and was like not supportive of that. And it was interesting for me, and it's still interesting because, I think there's a really, I don't know how to say it. There's an interesting dynamic in relationships where you feel like once you're together, or once you're married, or you've been married for a certain period of time, like you have to ask your partner for approval to do things, or you have to ask your partner for approval to pursue things, or live dreams, or expand things. And we communicate a lot. Yeah. Right? There was no, I didn't just all of a sudden go, hey, come outside, there's a Lamborghini in the driveway. And you're like, fuck, I didn't know you were trying to buy a Lamborghini. You knew I was buying a Lamborghini. I looked at Lamborghinis for months, right?
Right.
You know that I'm racing. You knew that I was talking about buying this race car. And so it wasn't I'm springing it on you, but I never stopped and said, hey, babe, can I buy this car? Or are you okay if I buy this car? Or are you okay if I race? So I'll talk about that for a little bit, because it's something that has been brought to us on the podcast from a lot of couples. It's been something that I've experienced coaching men for a long time, of this need of approval or need to have her on board kind of a thing. And our dynamic is very, very, very different.
Yeah. Like this morning when you said, hey, babe, I just bought a race car. My knee-jerk reaction was, wow, congratulations. And I meant that. And that's, came from my heart space, where Sean just walked off the show, and now I'm very uncomfortably talking to myself. The bang?
Yeah, you brought a bang in.
I don't know, over there somewhere.
Keep going.
Sponsored clip by Bang Energy Drink.
She brought a bang in for you, bro. I didn't know where it was.
Our favorite flavor, unicorn rainbow.
Yeah, sorry.
Not a joke.
I wanted this bang, and it wasn't sitting here, so I
just have to joke. Sean will do this, and we'll start getting on his phone, and I'm like, I'm having a conversation with you, Sean, and now I'm off talking to the ceiling. Okay, what I was saying is my knee-jerk reaction was, congratulations. I really was so excited for Sean to pull the trigger on getting a race car. And there's a lot to this. So I'm not like, yay, I'm so glad you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on fast cars. That's great. What it really comes down to is I have a husband who lives his dreams. And most people don't pull the trigger to live their dreams and take action in moving forward. They'll say, oh, I want to do this, but they don't actually do it. Like Jason has a race team, and he did an event where he was talking like, how many people want to come race with me? Mm-hmm. I do. How many this? And it's like whittles down at question after question to almost nobody, because when it comes down to it, people won't invest in their dreams for whatever reason. Yeah. Most people truly won't invest in their dreams. And with you, I admire that you will work really, really hard, and you take chances in not only business, but in your dreams. It's like you could, there's a huge expense to doing this, but the mindset you have with, say, racing is the more you're thriving, the more you're happy, the more you're living in your with full passion, the more abundance is going to come in the back end. So it's not actually like, I don't view it as a debt. I view it as that's an investment into furthering you into a greater space in life, to where then you're going to he doesn't like the word manifest, but manifest more abundance. Yeah. And I think Jason is the same way. That's, he runs a very, very, very successful business, and racing is what keeps his head on straight. There's a huge expense to it, But even his wife, she's incredible. She knows the same thing. It's like this is important for him, and so the rest of the family, the business, everything else thrives because of this. And so that's the way I see it. And I think that this is with anything, if husbands want to take up golfing, if that's a thing, instead of looking at it as, this is time away, or this is an expense, or this is that, or whatever, look at it as it's an investment to a happier life.
Yeah. One of the things that I want you to talk about too is the support of that, because I think that a lot of people, well, let's drill down on this. There's a lot of men that don't have support of their women. And I don't think it's because of what they're actually doing or what they're wanting to go do.
Right.
I think that it's a much deeper experience or reality of maybe not having trust, or maybe having unfulfilled promises, or, I'll get to that kind of a thing, like kind of the play before the work, right?
Right.
I understand that what I'm doing is it costs money, right? And you're not questioning the money because you know that our financial house is in order.
Right.
And I think that that's incredibly important for people to know and to understand, because you and I are extremely transparent on every aspect of our life.
Yep.
Including business, including money, where we are financially, what we're doing, what we're making. You see the growth. You see the expansive reality of our life. And I think that a lot of relationships and a lot of couples struggle in that reality, because as we've talked about it, you're like, it's not an issue of money. Yeah, you know that it's expensive, but the reality is you're watching the businesses grow and the businesses expand. Yeah. And so there's not that worry there. And so, the guy who's like, my wife never lets me go hunting, or I can't go fishing, or whatever, because you're going to go spend half a day and you're stressing at home about bills, or things are late, or there's a lack, or there's unfulfilled promises, or there's I'm gonna, and it doesn't come, and so there's that hesitation. Yeah. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So a lot of people do things for escape. So they'll spend money to escape, or to avoid what's actually going on, and to not be accountable. Right. And it's the reverse of that. And I think that's what happens a lot in marriages. Is it's like, I'm going to go and buy the sports car and put it, I don't have the money for it, and I'm going to put it on credit, and which there's nothing wrong with having credit, like whatever, but going into massive amounts of debt to fulfill a void. That's the issue. Right. And you guys both know that. Like, you'll know that that's the case or not. Like, we're not doing these, you're not racing because you're trying to fill a void. Like, you pack up your whole family and we do this. And, the big key, a word that came to my mind is freedom. You should, just because you're in a partnership doesn't mean that you should lose your freedom. Right. Freedom as in you have this life to live. Go live your life and do it in a way that you're building and growing happiness, right, and joy and connection and love and all those things, with yourself, with your friends, with your family. And
I think it's huge that each person, I think it's massive that everybody needs to have a hobby. Everybody needs to have something. Everybody needs to have their passion, their whether it's making necklaces, whether it's making jewelry, making earrings, racing cars, whatever it is. Yeah. Everybody should have that. And I truly believe that when you have your house in order, that alleviates a lot of the contention that you see nowadays with people not supporting each other because the house is in order. When you and I are good, being away for a day or two or three or whatever it is to go race or to go do this or go whatever, there's no problem there. But when the house isn't in order, you get a lot of the pushback. You get a lot of the contention. You get a lot of the resentment. You get a lot of that, oh shit, I got to figure out how to let my wife go on let me go on this trip. Let me do all of these other things to try and bridge that gap. Yeah. When the reality is, like you said it really well, like me racing, it fills my cup. It's an investment. It's something that I love to do, that I'm getting more and more and more passionate about. I happen to have 50 of those things that I'm passionate about.
This is true.
I love
good thing that you work hard.
I have a very expensive lifestyle. You do. And I mean, as I say this with like cowboy boots on with shit on them.
Brenda and I were laughing. Our daughter, we were laughing because I'm like, at least there's only one of us with really expensive hobbies out of the 7 of us, because it averages out to be decent.
Yeah, but what I think is really important to understand is like having your house in order, in my personal opinion, is what creates the trust and the stability to be able to have, whether it's an inexpensive hobby or an expensive hobby, the hobby period. Like us having our relationship in order creates the freedom for me to be able to go do whatever the fuck I want. Yeah. And I know that that's not a prerequisite. I'm still free to go do whatever the fuck I want, but it's significantly easier for me to be like, yo, I just bought an Aston Martin race car. But if we were struggling financially, or if we hadn't communicated, or we were in a bad place in our life or a marriage, that would be one of those conversations where I'm like, oh, fuck, how do I tell her this? Or even worse, like, babe, can I go do this? And then what happens is you would say, well, what about, or no, and then in that resentment builds where I'm like, yo, I really want to do this, but I'm waiting for your permission, but we're disconnected.
Yeah.
I speaking to the men now, because there's a lot of guys who have this scenario where it's like, I want to go do these things. I want to go hunt. I want to go fish. I want to go race cars. I want to go do all this other stuff, but my wife won't let me, or my wife gets mad, or all these other things. I truly believe it has nothing to do with your hobby. It has nothing to do with you going fishing. Yeah. It has nothing to do with you going hunting. It has nothing to do with spending $200,000 or $400,000 racing cars. It has to do with having your house in order. Yeah. Is your relationship in order? Is your relationship connected? Like, are you connected in supporting your wife? Are you connected in supporting your family? Are you investing with your family? Do you have the connection with the family to where you can then go do that? Or can you make your family part of what it is that you're doing? You know, are your finances in order? I know that sounds really elementary, and that might even be weird for some people to relate those two, but the truth is, I don't care if you're buying a $200 fishing pole or $200,000 race car. The reality is that the more you have your finances and your financial house in order, not that it's easier to buy these things, there's more confidence and there's more trust in that relationship, that personal relationship, that marriage, when your finances are in order to be able to go do things. Because you know, I'm a builder. I'm going to keep building. I'm going to keep providing, right? There's no, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's a single thing in your mind that you think someday I'm going to wake up and just be some lazy piece of shit that sits on the couch and we go broke. I don't think there's anything in your mind that would even bring you to that reality, right? You know that I'm going to keep hunting.
We're not made like that.
The bigger I hunt, the bigger I hunt. The bigger I hunt, the more I want to keep hunting big, right? And these experiences are the way that they are. And so for me, it's easy to just say, yo, I just bought a race car. I'm going to go do this, or let's go do this, kind of a deal. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yep. Part of having our house in order too is having our energy in order. So when we were out of the racetrack, and multiple people asked me, are you nervous? And my answer was, no, I'm not. And they were like, how are you not nervous? Your husband's racing a car he's never raced on a racetrack that's like big boy, as Jason calls it. And I said, we don't have space for that.
Yeah.
And one of the chicks looked at me like, what? And I said, energy, it's a mantra. Like, whatever we focus on will be.
I was nervous enough for the both of us.
Yeah, but that's what I said. I said, I don't need to contribute. That's not mine to be nervous about. If he wants to be nervous because he's racing the car, that's fine, whatever. But like, I'm not going to get, because I believe in energy is real. Like, I believe, the way you speak, they're mantras. Like, you speak things into existence. Your words are powerful because they become your actions and your thoughts and everything. And that's a really, really, really important part about having your house in order is, how are you speaking? If you're speaking in scarcity or lack all the time of like, we don't have, that's your reality. Right. You don't have. You will not have.
Right.
And that's real. And so like with worrying out of the racetrack, it's like, no, I'm not worried about finances. I'm not worried about his driving ability. Like, I believe in my husband. Like, I believe, and that's how we live. That's really important. So have your house in order energetically. Have your mind on straight. So when you do come to me and say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm like, of course you are.
Yeah. I want to say one other thing to this. And I shared this with you yesterday. You just said something about, we don't have the money for this, or we can't do this, right? That's a very real mentality that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
When we get to, or when we have, or we have to do this, or this first, right? I hear that from men and women and people all the time. You know, I've shared this story.
Even children speak like this.
Exactly. Yeah, I can't do this, or it's too expensive, or what about this, or about that. You know, I was in Baja a couple years ago with Will, and I've shared this experience multiple times. This guy came up to me and Will. We were in contingency, so we were driving the car through to get it tacked, and all the people are out there and the whole thing. And he's like, "Oh, Sean Whalen, you know, I've been following you on Instagram. Good to see you down there. You must be Will." And you know, he was just older gentleman and chopping it up, and he was down to watch the races. And he's like, "Man, I've wanted to do this forever. It's on my bucket list, like for, you know, me and my son to do this." And I was like, "Well, why don't you do this? Like, why don't you race it?" I mean, this Will was like 12 at the time, right? And he's like, "Well, I got kids at college. I got this. I got that. I got whatever of all of these things.
I've got
and,
excuses."
You know, and I was like, "Let me just ask you a question." I said, "There's a company down here." Like, he was like, "I don't have a car and I don't have this and whatever. I just, you know," I said, "There's a company down here that I could introduce you to that they have full race prep and race delivery services, meaning you literally pay them a chunk of money and they will give you the buggy, they'll give you the race support, they give you the pit crew, the team, literally to race the Baja 1000. I said, it's 15 grand. I don't know what it is today, so don't quote me on this. This was a couple years ago. It might be more, it might be less. I said, it's 15 grand for you and your son to be able to come down here to race the Baja 1000. And I just flat out looked at this guy. I said, would you even notice if your 401k or your IRA or investment account was $15,000 lighter? And he looked at me and he's like, no. And I said, that's the difference between me and you, is I realize that I don't have forever. I realize that, like, I'm living in today, you know? And I think what you said is very important, and it's very important for people to understand this mentality. When you talk about, well, you know, we can't afford this or we can't do this, I am in no way, shape, or form advocating someone to be fucking reckless and to spend your last $100. It's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm really wanting you to understand in this conversation, friends, is that is programmed into our DNA of lack, of constantly and always saying we can't afford it, we don't have enough, we have to. And that was a mentality that I lived in for a long time. Where it was like, I need to keep saving money and having more, and I need to have this, and then I have to have this. And it was like this constant evolution and revolution into the same mentality of scarcity. Like, looking at spending money on something was like, no, there's way other things. I need the safety blanket. I need all of these other things. You know, and I had a conversation with a buddy of mine yesterday, as we were talking about racing, and he's like, man, I miss getting out there and getting after it, the whole thing. And this is a guy who's very wealthy, very, very, very wealthy. He's like, man, I miss being out there and the whole thing. And I like paused and I sent him we were messaging back and forth on Instagram. I said, dude, you're fucking rich. Bro, you're fucking rich. He already has a race car. He owns a race car. I'm like, get your fucking race car and come race with us. Like, well, you know, the market, and there's so many opportunities, and we're super busy right now in this whole thing. And that mentality, right? Even on both ends of the spectrum, for a dude who's wealthy, who has the capacity to write $1 million check with not even fucking flinch, down to somebody who is like on the come up or building their retirement or building this or whatever, there's always going to be that mentality of like, you know, we can't afford it, or I have to keep going, or I have to do all this other stuff. One of the things that I'm fully convinced on, as I have tested both of these lifestyles, the lifestyle of working 20 hours a day, saying when I'm 65 and retired, then I'll play, and then I'll buy the sports car, then I'll get a boat, then I'll do these other things. And then flipping the script and writing a new reality for myself to where I can live whatever the fuck dream I want right now, and I can buy whatever I want right now, and building that reality. Yeah. I would have you guys consider for a second that no matter where you are on this spectrum, the dreams that you have, the visions that you have, the passion that you have is with you right now for a reason. Yep. It's given to you right now for a reason. It's in your heart. It's in your mind. It's in your soul. I get messages from people every single day on Instagram, Facebook, that are like, dude, you inspire me, and I saw you with your son or your family out there. How cool is this, or whatever. And my real challenge and question for you in listening to this is like, what bullshit excuses are you selling yourself right now that are keeping you from living your dreams? Like, I literally just bought a 6-figure race car, and I looked at that, and it was like, there's stocks and there's things and there's retirement and there's assets and there's houses and there's investment properties and all these other things that I could go buy and I could go do and I could go set up and I could worry about this rate of return and that thing and this thing and that thing and all this other shit. And I do invest in a lot of things. I've got assets and I have investments.
Your house is in order.
My house is in order. I've got a year's worth of cash sitting in the bank, right? There's always going to be that we can't do this. We can't afford this. And you said it perfectly. So long as you say that and continue to say that, and you as a couple say that, like if looking at your husband, ladies, and saying, we can't do this, or you can't do this right now, or we can't afford this right now. Is that even real? Is that even real? Now, there's some people that are listening right now that are flat ass broke that literally don't have $20, and I get that's probably very real that you can't go buy a $200,000 sports car. But step back for 2 seconds, because there are people that are very wealthy. They're saying, well, I can't go do it right now because I'm so busy. And that ideology, that mentality of lack, I have found for me in making my dreams, making these visions that I have a priority above the lack, above the money conversation, above the, well, should I do this or could I do this or where could I spend this other money? I have personally found in my own life, the more I pursue my dreams, the more I stretch myself, the more I come out of my comfort zone, the more I buy the race cars, the more I race in places that are terrifying and scary, the bigger the fucking jet that I charter, the more I invest into my businesses and into my investments, the more I'm winning.
Yeah.
And the more everything grows. And this might be odd for some people to really wrap their head around, but I truly am not only a believer of this, but I'm living this and understanding that if you're not prioritizing your dream, if you're not literally prioritizing your dream the way you prioritize dinner, if you're not literally eating, living, breathing, sleeping, investing, creating, working towards your dreams and your visions, they will fucking die.
Yes, they will.
And if those die, so does everything else. Yeah. If you're a man who wants to go live and wants to go race and you sedate yourself and say, that's for somebody else, I can never be there, I can never do that. I bought a fucking $10,000 Acura Integra when I started racing, man. I started with a little rice rocket piece of shit car that, you know, you find on the side of the road. And Jason, he makes millions of dollars. Like, we have a grand fucking time racing those cars. So I challenge you guys in this conversation, not only to have the support for one another, like we were talking about earlier, but to really understand that no matter where you are on the spectrum of income, of dreams, of vision, of life, if you're not prioritizing your dreams and actively pursuing them, not just putting them up on some fucking vision board or putting a race car in the, you know, poster in the corner of your workshop, if you're not actively working towards that shit, it will fucking die. And so long as you're with a partner or in a relationship where can't takes precedence over how. That's
what I was going to say.
If
how can we make this happen?
That's what we talk about.
Let's make a plan. Exactly.
This is how our conversation is so long as you're living in, we can't do this, and you don't shift that mentality to, how do we do this?
Can't is a dead-end road.
You'll never get there. And I promise you, so long as I have breath in my lungs, I will say this because I have done both. I have lived both of these realities, and I have lived a can't lifestyle. I can't do this. I can't afford this. I can't take the work off. I can't do this. I can't do that. And now I look at every single thing that I have. Right, like right now, the next thing on my bucket list is a plane. I want an airplane. And it's not like I'm not saying, well, I can't do this or I can't do this. I'm literally, every conversation you hear me and my friends and my business partners talking about is, how do I make this reality? How do I make this happen? And I can tell you without question that it's not, you have to have some serious audacity to buy your own fucking airplane.
Well,
it's coming because of, I know that I'm having this reality now, this level of conversation, because of buying an Acura Integra last year, because I'm buying an Aston Martin, because we've been leveling up these dreams and these visions, that I'm now in this real conversation of, how do I buy an airplane?
And like talk energy. We were on the plane, and we were having this conversation with Jason and Jocelyn. And I looked back at Alex, who's part of your team at Lions Don't Sheep. And I was like, okay, Alex, we got to make more money. Figure it out. And he's like, I'm on it. And what's cool is I had this thought of, not only do we do that in our relationship, but we do it with our family, but we do it in our business. Like, to the point where I say that, and Alex knows exactly what that means. And he's invested because of how the structure is, this is just our space. Yeah. This is our little sphere of life. And he had that same response. And he knows that's because he levels up when we're leveling up. We're all leveling up because there is no can'ts.
Right.
Like, you guys don't speak can'ts at the warehouse.
Yeah.
It's how do we make this happen?
Yeah.
You guys have run into so many walls. And it's like, okay, how do we figure it out? How do we...
One of my favorite things to say with the team is, how do we solve this problem?
Yeah.
It's just, how do we solve this problem? I mean, whatever's in front of us, there is no, well, this is going to stop us, this is going to roadblock us, this is going to, whatever. It's how do we solve this? Like, what do we do right now to solve this problem? Yeah. And that's all I'm focused on. I'm not focused on the what ifs and the what it could. Like, right here, right now, we have an issue, we have something in front of us.
Solution-based thinking.
Right. And if you had that same tenacity, friends, in your life, like, in pursuing your dreams, you know, like, you might not have a dream of an airplane. You might not have a dream of a race car. You might have a dream of a little cabin in the woods. You might have a dream of taking that vacation, whatever it is, right? Like, retiring your mom, retiring your dad, whatever it ends up being. Like, until you make that mental shift and you just say, how do I do this? Because once you inject that question of how, you go on a mission. And this is how I've been. It's, how do I do this? How do I become a better race car driver? I have to have a coach. How do I become a better race car driver? How do I become a better business owner? How do I become a better father or a better husband? Not like, well, we can't have what they have. We can't do what they do, right? Like, we don't talk like that. That's not part of our reality.
We don't have limiting beliefs like that.
And then one other thing I wanted to say, and I want you to talk about this. One of the things that I see, and this is a much deeper relationship conversation, you know, you see a lot of couples that are very, I'm just going to say it how it is, very negative towards their spouse, very negative towards their partner's reality, towards their dreams. You know, I have literally watched and witnessed women shoot a man's dream down, like, right in front of him, where he's talking about how he wants to do these things, and she's literally like, no, he's just always talking big, and he's always over here, and he's always over there, and whatever. I don't think there's anything more discouraging that a human being could do, especially your partner, than to discourage or to shoot down or to talk shit about their dreams.
My first thought with that, though, is, why are you picking a partner that's allowing limited beliefs in your space?
Sure.
That was just my first thought.
Right.
Which, obviously, if you've been married for a long time, figure that one out.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's personal accountability. Why are you picking a partner that lives in scarcity?
Right.
So check yourself there first. I think that I would have conversations. So say your partner shoots you down. I would have a conversation of, what is it about this that makes you uncomfortable? And just maybe offer like open-ended questions so they can maybe it's just fear. Maybe they just don't trust you. Right. And having those conversations will actually get them to trust you by saying, hey, like, what is it about me wanting to pursue racing that scares you? I'm scared that you're going to get in a wreck and die. Okay, so what are the odds of that happening? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so if I have a life insurance policy, will that make you feel better? Like, you could have these conversations and create a bridge of trust.
I do have life insurance, by the way. I don't know if racing is covered in it. I should check that. You know, there are acts of God and other things that are probably excluded. But anyways, carry on.
Isn't everything an act of God?
I don't know. I'll have to check on that.
But those are like, because you obviously, like, there's a lot beneath fear. There's a lot beneath, while your partner is shooting down your dreams, that you know, they just may live in their own scarcity, that they're scared of their own dreams. It's that simple. And so I think approaching them with love and open-ended questions, you're going to get somewhere with these conversations. You and I are just, ever since we've known each other, we have that mentality. So we kind of already we already knew what we were getting into.
Yeah.
We knew that we were big risk takers. And I think that's something too to think about is take healthy risks, you know, be willing to take risks and be willing to fuck up and fail, because you can just start over unless you crash your car and die. And then you really,
Then
you'll have to pull another ticket for another cycle of life. But
you know, though, this is really important because, you know, there's two ways to look at that. Number one is if you're shooting somebody else's down, like why is it that you are so negative yourself that you're shitting on somebody else's dreams? But number two, like why are you not dreaming bigger?
Yeah.
And this is something that I am, you know, glad that we have is I could come up and say, you know what, I'm going to go buy a fucking ticket to Virgin Galactica, whatever the hell, and I'm going to go to the moon. Right? I'm going to jump on Bezos' rocket ship and I'm going to the moon. You know what I mean? And I don't ever see a day where you'd be like, that's stupid. You're not going to do that. You'd be like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, you can do that? Great. Go fucking do that.
Right,
you know
after
what I mean?
the Aston Martin, I was like, and I'm sure there's going to be a day that you're going to say, hey, babe, I just bought a plane. Hey, babe, I just bought a helicopter. Hey, babe, we just put a landing strip on the ranch. Hey, babe. I'm like, there's probably not anything you can throw at me that I'm going to be shocked by. And that's what
I challenge?
But see, I feel like
I can think of I'm going to go down the rabbit hole now. What could I do that she'd be like, I don't know about that.
I admire you though, and I am your biggest cheerleader, and I will always be. And I admire the way you dream, and so the more you dream, you light up, and the more you're lit up, it's the more you're living life to the fullest. And our marriage it's so beautiful when you're thriving. It's when you stay in like the low vibration. It's just everything's in low vibration. So, you know, if your partner is dreaming big, think about like on the flip side of that, there's a lot coming back to you that's going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
And even if it fails and they burn, you know what's great is you still get to be excited that they fucking took a chance.
Yeah.
Because most people that are successful have failed way more times than they've been successful.
100%.
So keep that in mind. It's like trying to keep things safe is putting yourself in prison.
Yeah.
It just is.
I think the other thing that makes this really cool too is racing's not your jam, right? Racing's not something that like gets you all hot and horny kind of a deal where it does for me. But you're in it. You're involved in it. You're as much in it as me. Like Joss, our friend's Jason and Joss. Like Joss is not a racer. She doesn't race, but she's by his side, supporting him, cheering him on, ensuring that his experience racing is as good as it gets, right? And I think that's huge to know that, like, you know, your dreams are not my dreams and my dreams are not your dreams, but I'm a fucking dreamer.
Yeah.
And I want you to dream. I want to support you in your dreams. I want you to support me in my dreams, no matter what they are, how crazy outlandish they are. And I feel like if you find yourself, friends, in a situation where somebody's shitting on your dreams, or perhaps you're shitting on somebody else's dreams, you got to step back and look at that and realize, like, I would much rather be in a situation where I'm dreaming and I have vision than not. And I would much rather be with somebody that's constantly dreaming and constantly visioning. You know, the way that this gets better, though, then let's just talk real practical application, is by actually accomplishing shit.
Yep.
Fellas, you want your woman to support you more, go fucking hunt more. Go win more. Bring home more buffaloes. You know, I could go spend whatever I want on a car, and I don't ever foresee a day where you're like, well, how much was that? Was that too much? Never, because you know how I operate.
Yeah.
And I know how I operate. And there aren't hollow promises. I was like, yo, I'm going to go race. If I said that 87 times and never actually did it, you probably wouldn't believe, you know, the 88th time. But I'm like, yo, I'm going to go race. And you watched me go race.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what's next?
And I'm okay if it all fizzles out and doesn't work out too. Like, if, you know, what I love about you is I love that you're dreaming and you take action. I love that what that models for our children. Our children literally see their father take action, invest very much in your dreams and in your business and in other people and in family. These are investments that you can't teach a child that in school. They don't learn that at church. Seeing a parent actually take action is so powerful. And so when we were out there at the racetrack, I made sure everybody had the same shirt on. I had kids waving flags. I was kind of bossing the film crew around. I was like, listen, I want to get these pictures. These are super important, because I knew I wanted to encapsulate this moment in time with our kids out there. They were so jazzed about their dad out there. We didn't care that you didn't win the race. It actually is irrelevant if you won. It was the fact that we were there and you were doing it. And to me, as your wife, knowing that education that our children are getting from that experience is worth everything. It's worth the whatever the car costs, whatever the trip costs. It's having your mom out there and seeing her son, who she raised as a single mom, busting her ass, out there living his dreams. And now he brought her along to experiences. Like, that's worth every penny.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's invaluable.
It's exactly. It's invaluable.
Like I've said that multiple times about this weekend, like from chartering a plane to the race to the whole thing. Like, if this was my last weekend alive, and I live my life like this, and you know this, and anybody listening that questions me, just watch. I mean, I'm not going to make hollow promises and tell you this, that, or the other. Like, just watch. Like, I'm doing it, right? Like, if this was my last weekend alive, what would I want to do?
Yeah.
And I did exactly what I would have wanted to do.
Yep.
I did exactly what I wanted to do, period. And when you start living your life that way, you start operating that way, you start taking the cants out and saying, if this was our last weekend, are we really, really, really worried about the 401k and the IRA and 30-year plan and 80-year plan and the whole fucking year plan? If this is the last weekend, what would we do? Go do that. Go live that life. And I promise you, the more you do that, the more it inspires you to do that. The more you like dream and execute on a dream, the more it inspires you to dream. The more you do these things, it's just like anything else. You're out of shape. You start working out. It's that one time you walk past the mirror and you're like, yo,
check out those
wait a second. My pants, you know what I'm saying? It's that singular moment. That singular moment when you walk past the mirror and you're like, oh shit, this is working. Yeah. And then you get hungry for more. You go out there and I came in dead fucking last in the race.
We were so
and I'm
proud
like,
of you.
Yo, let's go again. I want to race more. I was bummed that we were leaving. I was like, let's do it again. Like $5,000, me and you. Like, let's go. Like, who wants to race me? Like, I wanted to get back out on the track so fucking bad. And I can't wait. So much so that I came home and bought a fucking race car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm in. Let's go do this again.
After coming in dead last.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, come in.
I was not discouraged at all, man.
And even us as a family, we didn't even give a flying hoot what place you in. Yeah. It was just watching you drive by. I was like, that's our guy.
I do have ambitions to get better, though. I would like to not be last every single race. However, I'm having a great time. And so long as I keep it out of the wall and don't wad it up, I'll be pretty happy about that.
Right. And with all this being said, is there is no trade. Like, there is no, there doesn't have to be an outcome for me to be satisfied. It's the fact that we're doing it. Yeah. So if we lost everything, if every penny went away, if we were down to bare basics, whatever, I would still be just as enthused with what we're building, because we would just start from a smaller scale and keep going back up. And that's like the mentality of just like keeping like good energy in your space. Yeah. And we don't have ultimatums with, well, if you do this, then I do this. It's like, no, you just do that. Right. And if I want to do something, then I just do that. There's no bargaining system going on in our house.
That being said, I would like to buy another race car on top of the race car that I just bought. Can we barter on this? Actually, fuck it. I don't really care. I'm already working on it. That's a true story. Anyways,
shocks.
Ladies and gentlemen, dream big, go big, act on your dreams, man.
Yeah.
Seriously, make them real.
Life is so short, guys.
Yeah,
just
it really is.
Fucking do it.
There will be a day that you wake up that you're not going to be able to race. Yeah. Your body won't allow you to do it, and you could have all of the chips, you could have all of the money, you could have won the money game, and you couldn't buy back the race. You couldn't buy back the trip. You could spend all of this time stack, money, win that game, and you will
Buy that
never be
crystal.
able to buy
I know.
back. What?
Nothing.
Buy the what?
Nothing.
Did she say crystal or crystal? Oh, Jesus Christ. Babe, look, I don't have a problem
I
with you
have
buying
problems
crystals.
too. It's fine.
We have so many of
I
them.
know.
That's the issue.
I really went for it this
Like,
last week.
I don't care about you buying crystals. It doesn't matter to me. But where the fuck are we going to put them all?
Now they're just going in the plants. If you
That's
haven't
what I'm
noticed.
saying. We have crystals in the fucking plants. There's so many of them. We have mountains of crystals all over. I don't care that you buy crystals, but you kind of reach a threshold where you can't fit furniture
Wait,
in a home.
are you limiting my dreams right
No,
now?
I'm not. I'm saying,
Hold on.
you know.
Do we have too many race cars right now?
No, we don't. Yeah, get a freaking crystal for the race cars.
Can I get you a little dangly one that sparkles?
Buy all the crystals you want. We're just going to need a bigger house. Or just start throwing them in the yard. Let's build a fence of crystals. That's a problem. That's a
I'm
great
gonna put a crystal grid
solution.
on the ranch.
Build
I need a lot more crystals.
We need a fence in the backyard for the dogs. Just go fucking build one with crystals. Then you can buy them all that you want.
Quartz crystal fence.
I guarantee you there are very few people on this planet that have one of those.
Let's just start with the crystal grid of the ranch.
Actually, that's probably a terrible idea because that's really expensive. That's probably really expensive.
Honey,
isn't
that's way expensive.
That's a bad idea. Let's not do that then. We'll put a regular fence in and you can put like crystals on the top of all of the posts or something.
Don't edit that out, Adam.
What?
Nothing.
It's a bad idea.
Carry on. I love
Ladies and gentlemen, we love you. Go dream. go race cars. Support your lover in their dreams. Don't shit on him. Push him out the door of the plane and let him jump. Yeah. In a good way, you know. Hopefully you're jumping out behind them. You're not just pushing them out. But anyways, we love you guys.
We
Appreciate
love
you.
you.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.